right. Hi. Hello, everyone. This is Mike Shaw. Absolutely. Yeah. We this week we're going to be covering Chris Nolan and going in depth. He has a hell of an arc. Knows how to tell good stories. And what were your thoughts of having to go back and watch Chris Nolan films this past week? Just as I think I think, and I think that's a good kind of where we fall on the spectrum of this stuff. I'm with you. It's more casual for me, and I've always enjoyed his films. I find that even when I didn't know who he was, I tended to gravitate more toward his films when they came out. I don't think and then obviously that grew into like being a fan, but that's, I don't know in depth in the weeds inside and out, but I do definitely appreciate his approach and how he weaves storylines together. I can't wait to get into for sure, and that's kind of the thing that I think is cool too. And then I'll toss it over to you and where your thoughts are. He actually has done a few comic book superhero movies, and you wouldn't think that those would be on his resume for all the other things he does. You think he'd be a little bit more of a, I don't know what I'd be looking for, but more of a fine line artist. Kind of like more. Uh, I don't know what I'm not what I'm looking for, but in any case. Hmm. Hmm. Right. Yeah, I absolutely. Yeah, I'm not even going to pretend like I knew who he was or whatever. My first film that I remember kind of connecting the dots was Memento, and I didn't really like. I mean, it was a good movie. It was kind of confusing when I was younger, but I agree. It wasn't probably until I want to say it probably wasn't until honestly 2018 that I realized, oh, hey, this is Chris Nolan, and he does really good stuff. And then I think what did yeah, it would have been around that time, and was like, whoa. And I did rewatch some of the earlier things, Like primarily ones that I had kind of seen one off here or there, you know. So I am definitely a late Chris Nolan fan for sure, or Stan, whatever. uh, to me, he has more hits than not, you know. Uh, but like I'm not gonna say that all his movies are on my top blah, whatever sci-fi movies or whatever. But they're not far down the list, But that's kind of personal choice. But having said that, though, I one of the things I know that I can rely on is that if he has a story, I'm probably going to be more interested than not. However good that may be, I do think that Interstellar uh, uh, and excuse me, Inception was pretty good as well. But anyway, I mean, there's a lot good. What are your thoughts on his newer efforts? Mhm. No. Sure. Right, right, right. Yeah, no, I agree. That it's he knows how to each movie kind of is its own um, thing, its own. I mean, some concepts are repeated, like time. Time is a huge one. He uses that as part of the storyline, part of the whole thing. And but he also uses it in the Batman stuff more than anything else because you're right. It's not. I mean, I'm just trying to think, trying to find the words to say. Batman's already dark. Everybody knows that, And then there's been different feels of what that means in reality, from Keaton Batman, um, um, what's his name? Nicholas. Good grief, crap. The old Joker. Anyway, Jack Nicholson. I don't. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, him, and then then this era. Right, right, right. Yeah, I mean, right, like the kitschy, Batman show, but it had its own, that was a different, different era for sure too. But his Batman's movies were, I'd say, pretty satisfying overall. I. Mhm. years old. Right. Yeah. Yeah. The Batman Begins was all right. I mean, it was good and entertaining. And it kind of establishes the origins of Batman and Ra's al Ghul and all that stuff, the origins. But Dark Knight, or yeah, that's right, Dark Knight. I get the two confused between the Bane one and the Joker one. In any case, the Dark Knight. I mean, obviously, besides it being iconic with the Joker and Heath Ledger and Chris, like that thing, everything lined up and hooked up, and it was just probably. I mean, I don't know what your opinion is, but probably the better of the three Batman movies. I mean, I think that the Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, I think that the Dark Knight Rises, and tell me, I think it tries to be a little bit more aspirational. It didn't quite get there, in a way, but it, yeah, right, right, no, yeah, no, I agree. It doesn't carry itself as strongly as the Dark Knight does. But this is all water under the bridge because it's already said and done. But I did enjoy aspects of the Bane. This is not something that you would get on the first walkthrough or the first whatever, but you rewatch things or whatever, and as you rewatch it, it does have value and extra layers that you didn't catch. And I think that it really is true without saying. Um, some of his more uh, aspirational films that had completely different concepts, not popular comic book characters or whatever, that are a little bit more in between, like I don't know, maybe Twilight Zone type thing, or it explores some kind of science fiction aspect, kind of stretched out, whether it's time itself as the device, or it's space, or it's kind of sort of dipping the toe into the psychosphere, kind of like that, as we've kind of walked through what our likes and dislikes are and whatnot, and more, or I guess more of our likes than dislikes. But we've kind of talked about that, touched on the, like the last several weeks, where you have this, essentially he tries as much as possible to put you in the main character's shoes as possible. So you're dropped into some place, something's going on, and you're just as confused as the character is. And then as the storyline rolls forward, it kind of shows how small you are or small the character is in all this, but it's just interesting. Yep. Right. 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 Yeah. It's like a it's as violent as a car crash. I will also put that way. It's kind of like some of his movies. That you have to remember going into them sometimes. It is kind of feeling like that discombobulated, disoriented kind of what's going on. We don't know, as it builds forward, and sometimes that takes a little bit more patience on the audience's side than not. One of the newer ones, and he does this all the time, whether it's Tenet or Memento. It's there, and it's at first I really didn't fall in love with Memento, to be honest with you, because I had to watch it at least again to understand. I do not claim to be a big brain, big brain, a high art concept kind of guy, because I'm not. But it does take a time or two to watch through, and once you're used to that, it kind of gets a little bit easier. You're like, okay, I don't quite know where I am, but I understand that it reminds me a lot of Ian M. Banks and how one of his most famous novels was, which is Use of Weapons. And I'm always quick to mention a related sci-fi or somebody who borrows the concept greatly, but that one I don't even know if we could cover that in one show because it's just so complicated, but maybe one day. Maybe that's an idea for. But anyway, maybe for 2022. But in any case, that the just the concept of time and using it, and then putting you in that position it's pretty entertaining when it works. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Right. Right. Yeah, it wasn't as widely enjoyed like an Interstellar or even Inception at all. It definitely was more. It had more mixed feelings for sure on it, and I just enjoyed it from the standpoint of, like I said, I can find enjoyment in, and this is kind of more of Mike the fan talking than the critic, which I am not a critic. I can't even wear that title, but in any case. Yeah, like so we've covered some of kind of his more positive concepts. Like, what would you say on the list of his of films that you come to mind? Would you say would probably be his weaker three or his weaker set of movies that Nah, didn't quite pan out either at the box office or didn't quite materialize for what he was trying to achieve. Does that make sense? Right. And I only to stay on that point for a moment, I want to differentiate those two because there is a difference. And when you're going through a back catalog of somebody or whatever, for example, Dune, and that's something we might cover at a later date, but you have different iterations of it, and we kind of covered that on Batman too. Like there's what did the director want to do versus like how it turned out, and whether they're proud of that or not. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to kind of make that point more. Right. 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 Mm. Right. Hmm. Yeah. 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 And and I would really, kind of have a bone to pick outside of what our main show point is about. But to me as a consumer in general, I tack that on to. I think they would have had a lot more luck when the pandemic, and granted, it's a pandemic. It's 100-year flood kind of event. It's a freak. Nobody can control it. Nobody. You just have to go through it. That it sucks. It disrupts so much, and you're right about that. Matter of fact, I lucked out to go see Tenet because I essentially was cooped up in the house forever, and I hadn't been out on like a me trip, a solo trip, just going somewhere new that I've never been, and I it kind of like everybody else. I took precautions and whatnot, but I jumped on a plane in September of 2020, and I went out to Arizona to ended up in Tucson, and I stayed out there, and it was great. But in any case, why that's remained to Tenet is I didn't because I just remember the theaters in St. Louis and whatnot being shut down. Like it was even pointless to even look it up, because you just knew it was closed. I have no idea when they reopened or not, but like everybody else, you do what you can. But I it was like well the last couple nights I was in Tucson, and I said screw it, and I was at a Costco, and I saw that the theater was just across in the next building over, next parking lot or two over, and I rolled by and I'm like, oh, surely they're closed. And then I saw that they were open. I was like, oh, well, screw it. I might as well go see Tenet because I saw it and I had interest, and it was just interesting. So, but when I went in, nobody was there. I was surprised. Like there was barely employees there. It was just To kind of bring it back to the theme of our show here is that it was kind of dystopian. it just it's always eerie to go to a place that normally is populated with people and then like experience what it's like when it's just nobody else around. I don't think that there was but maybe one other person in theater. Like it was just eerie in and of itself. I think there was a few folks, but I mean, it was interesting. And so it just kind of adds another layer to like going and seeing the movie. But and when you mentioned that, right, exactly, yeah. I mean, I to be honest with you, I mean, I remember the movie and I I followed along, but and then it kind of took a little bit of figure out. Okay, okay. Like, so I understand where the characters are in time and what that means for future past events, whatever you want to call them. But uh, and I am not above cheating and watching a YouTube video on something I saw from somebody way smarter than me to kind of explain it, and then, oh, okay, that's what was going on, like that kind of thing. That I will absolutely am guilty of that for sure. But yeah, I think kind of, in my opinion, I personally love this, and this is kind of like where I know where it's just the fan instead of like the general like it was a really good movie. Was Man of Steel for me personally. I've seen that. I don't know why, but I rewatched that, and I as a comic book fan, uh, it's not offensive. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go that far, but I think there is a legitimate bone to pick when Superman kills. I mean, essentially, that's the spoiler alert, but that's essentially like the nut and bolts of like what it is for that, and that's one of his first major battles on Earth or whatever. So like that was it. It's the Superman fan in me, the Jerry Seinfeld Superman fan in me is not necessarily okay with that, but I still enjoyed it because it kind of at a higher level. And I've seen this movie like a million times, but it's just a favorite. But it does play on the duality of good and bad, of mankind. That kind of blah 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 blah. Anyway, this is an art philosophy class 101, but it's just interesting. Like, but I think that to be honest with you, probably the weaker ones, in my opinion, would have been, like maybe Dark Knight Rises with Man of Steel, and then maybe finish it out with probably Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, maybe, something like that. But that's just direct. Right, 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 right. Mhm. Mm. Uh-oh, technical difficulties. It dropped you out for just a moment there. You were wrapping up your talking about the difference, like with the 40, 50-year storylines with comic books and what the baggage that comes with that, making it into a new medium. Mm. Right. Supporting, yeah, supporting the man. Right. Right. Yep. Right. Mm. Right. Hmm. Yeah. No. That's I was just getting my note thing and making a note here to check out that series. There's one of the things that I'm surprised that Batman is like the forever mine of content. I mean, umpteen remakes, whatever. It's a storyline and a concept that is, well, for one thing, just kind of playing into the lean of it. DC has not necessarily been as successful as Marvel. That's obviously a contrast here. And you referenced it a little bit before when you were starting to talk about your point about, it's a formula now. At least if you side, even down to the small screen, down to the up to the big screen. I mean, it's interesting and it's good entertainment for sure. But but I think these well, there's no secret out there, but it's just been a little bit more. It's not like anything sucks outright, but not been well, it's not. It's comparing apples and oranges as far as success goes, and uh, interesting to see how they fix and cope with the thing. But like I said before, as a fan, I mean, how many years, how many decades have we had for them to figure out streaming? And like it's my personal thing is that it's always been a difficult thing to stream. Nowadays, it's not a big deal, but I mean, why did it take so long? Yeah, but it is what it is. And I do agree. There is nothing that will beat going actually physically to the theater. Having popcorn or whatever, and having the experience. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. Mhm. Right. Oh, no, no, not at all. I think it's not going anywhere. Like I would like to see it always be a thing. It just, it's one of those things. Like I can tell you how many times I've been in the theater in the last 2 years, and that was, Tenet, which was like a freak thing to kind of to experience. It was just a moment of opportunity, and then the last two, went to see Dune with a friend. And then I followed up, and me and my kids went to see it, and we did. This is despite the fact that we have HBO Max and we could have seen it on the TV. But well, for one thing, the cat was already out of the bag because I saw it with a very dear friend, and it it was amazing. Like that's how I kind of want it. And even before COVID, I really would hold off to go to the theater unless it was a movie that I was really looking forward to or had some kind of buzz or whatever. And I think I said it before, but like I derive most of my entertainment from the YouTube and years of cultivated channels and interests, that run the gamut. Versus like I still will watch TV shows, but I am the worst person in the room to pick to like scroll through Netflix and find something. I suck at that. That's not me. Like I rely on others to, even if it's like medium good. Anything else, like unless it's something that's bookmarked, that like The Expanse, or The Foundation, or etc. Whatever, something that I'm familiar with, or that catches my fancy, then I'm already up on top of it. I'll just go off of like what folks recommend, and for the most part, that works a lot better than endlessly trying to find something. Like I said, I'm horrible at that. For YouTube, it's just easy. I don't care. I just pick something, and if it sucks, I find something else, or if it's whatever, then it goes to the next thing, and then you're on that train. Not always, but it's just interesting how entertainment has changed. But that's true. I have found things. Yeah. Hmm. Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, no, and of course, I don't pretend that I got that habit all organically. To be honest with you, it was from my kiddos. I started to see and kind of consume things like them because, from their point of view, they've always had a Netflix or a YouTube or whatever to stream, like that kiddo, under five kind of content. That's where I think you or Netflix for me personally was a little bit more useful in general. And I was a true blue Netflix streaming fan all the way back for when they were doing the DVDs and whatever. I kept the same subscription forever until I canceled it and was like, well, you go through everything. What am I paying for this? I haven't picked this up in months or whatever. But it's kind of funny how it lands. But anyway, bringing it back to Chris Nolan here. I think I read that just a fact, something on his Wikipedia page. If I were to scroll further up, and I don't see why I shouldn't, but it said something along the lines of like he has his total box office receipts are in excess of $5 billion or something crazy, which is I'm glad that he has had success because I hope that we have more people, more directors like him who aren't afraid to tackle, complex topics and ideas that kind of bend the line of what science fiction is or whatnot. I think that it's the more the merrier, and I think that I wouldn't quite call it a golden age, but I do think that we are in a part of time where, in general, there is pretty good to great science fiction and comic book media out there versus like where, say, sometime in the 90s, like just it was kind of there, but it wasn't really not like today, but that's another aspect that we didn't really cover, but like he isn't afraid to do special effects too. But unlike like say like maybe a criticism of like a Michael Bay with the lens flare and just the over the top everything, I think he knows how to. I don't know how, but he even with these abstract concepts of like a movie, he still ends up being able to do some pretty cool stuff. Right. Right. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like compared to like the Flash or his Rogues Gallery of characters. I mean, they're not whatever, but you and Batman has his campy ones or whatever, but still, like it really is kind of cool how they have made legitimate, like take them seriously, kind of like these guys are either psychotic or they're they're a terrorist essentially, looking at Bane, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's and it seems like it's like a setup, like a hung up phone call almost. Like you get through it, and then you're like, okay, maybe they're going to do something further down the line with it. Like I think we chit chatted a little bit about Joseph Gordon-Levitt and how it ends The Dark Knight Rises. Like it essentially is saying that that there's that famous scene like where he says, well, I can't remember who he's talking to, but Batman basically replies like, not everything. Like I haven't given everything yet. It kind of foreshadows the end result of that. Now I won't spoil it too much, but essentially you're left off with this Joseph Gordon-Levitt police detective character is like, I don't know about you, but like that pretty strongly looks like if that were to continue on, like he would have taken up the mantle of either a Dick Grayson type, a Robin type, or something along, or even Batman himself, even taking up the mantle that way. But like there's definitely when you're talking about the handoff from like say Superman to another Superman, like that really doesn't exist. I mean, it's either something like that, but like where there's Batman, because he is, the joke is, the meme is that he's rich. That's his superpower. Like I think that's the Ben Affleck kind of like what, or that's just the joke in general. But aside, or the Lego Batman, which is another fun, a fun movie. But that was definitely red meat for the parents and for kids. That was one of those rare kiddo movies that like the adults are just as happy to be there as the kiddos are, which is a whole other aspect of this thing. But Batman, it would have been cool to kind of see maybe in another different way how that would have worked. But like I said, I think it was like you could just see that there was like no more gas in the tank. It just whatever they were planning just never materialized for whatever their idea, whatever the studio or Chris Nolan's thing was to green light the next version of it, even without him probably at the helm. But just interesting. It's right. Hmm. Right. Christopher Reese. Right. Okay. Sure. Sure. No, that's a good point, and this is why I love. These are things that I'm going to enjoy later on when we do that. So we're rolling up on about 52 minutes or so covering Chris Nolan. I want to save some time to kind of go through some of the things that we're looking forward to. But all in all, I think time will be very, very, very kind to Chris Nolan overall for whenever he stops making films. I think I worry sometimes a little bit, like Ridley Scott has had probably a little bit more misfires than late. that might tarnish his legacy, but that's not really true. I don't think that's really true. It's still going to be people are still going to remember, landmark Chris Nolan films like they are going to be for landmark Ridley Scott movies. But that's always the fear. But that's kind of the fan, like, oh no, you just don't want anything. You just don't want to see anything negative for your characters, that kind of thing. And with that being said, what was your overall opinion of him as a director, person, whatever in general? Sure. Hmm. No. Hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's virtually mirror the same comments from myself. Even when there's something there that isn't quite hitting 10 out of 10, it's still going to be entertaining, and I still know there's going to be some aspect there for me to rediscover later. Like, kind of revisiting this list here, I definitely want to rewatch again. Just to kind of take its time with some of the more not I wouldn't say obscure ones, but some of the ones that aren't quite as fancy. And it would be great. And I tried, but it would be great to even be able to see some of his earlier stuff that you're never going to be able to see really. Maybe one day. Right. Mm. Right, right. No, that's I again agree. It's one of those things like where you hope that we figure out how to, if something isn't, you can't buy it or rent it, like what happens to those Turner Classic Movies kind of things. Like obviously that's the way that I've seen a lot of older movies. Aside from if it was like my dad and growing up and saying, "Oh, let's watch Soylent Green. What's that?" Or that kind of thing, or Planet of the Apes or whatever, as we've kind of walk through a different media. But in any case, uh, I think we'll wrap it up talking about good old Mr. Nolan. Great visionary. Even if it's again, I agree. Like Tenet did not strike the same chord with me as it did with in Inception, and even less so than Interstellar. Like I mean, those are two of the top tippy top movies that are I'm not going to give a number, but they're higher up on the list than not for sure. They're just I love that. I love being having a concept introduced to me and not kind of know, and then kind of see how it happens. It's very cool. Like it, and to me, my dream would be if if it was possible for Chris Nolan to do something like Ian and Banks. I think that would be. I think he gets it maybe, or maybe he would get it too much. I don't know, but that would be the thing. But the last time I heard any rumors of any of Ian M. Banks movies being done, not not happening. There's more of a chance of a John Scalzi and Old Man's War series, being picked up and made before somebody like an Ian M. Banks, culture series novel. But anyway, neither here nor there. With that, sure. Is he? Yeah, that's interesting. See, this is what I love about how all this stuff, whether it's comic books or sci-fi, really, once you open that door, that window, and you take a look outside, it's a lot more interconnected world than you realize, especially when it comes to this. And like that, maybe that bears worth. I don't think it's popular enough because I do think that I think that the Foundation series was handicapped a little bit from the standpoint of like, sure, there's a billion Apple devices out there, or whatever it is, however many hundreds of millions, but I don't know about you, but I haven't heard the same buzz for the streaming portion of that than I have from like a Netflix or Amazon Prime or even an HBO Max. I hear those a lot more than I hear like Apple streaming business, which is it's sad to say, but I do think that there are pockets and corners here, and I will say, I guess maybe one of the pluses of the streaming thing is that you don't have to forever pay to access this thing. You can dip in and dip out, which I think is a lot more popular. I think people have their one or two favorites and they stick with them. They don't feel the bill. They don't care about it, unless it keeps going up, and then it's a contentious. It's the 21st century cable bill, like where they just keep rising the prices because you just keep adding more and more and more. And I was talking to my brother the other day, and he said he was streaming Paramount. I can't remember what show he was watching on there, but it was just interesting. But I tend to only stick to like a couple, and then anything outside that, I got to go find it and rent it or something else. Yeah, for once, I actually I have the media with me on hand, but the I picked up the Dune. It's a House Atreides, and it's the volume one, and I'm going through that, and I'm probably about halfway through it so far. And then I picked up some in line with what we were talking about earlier, was Primordial. I picked that up, and I haven't even cracked the covers on that one yet. But and I think I did. Oh, there's one called DMZ, and I'm not seeing it on my list here. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's a DMZ one, and it's, can you hear me now? Sorry, hit the wrong button on the thing. But no, those are the ones that I'm looking forward to, and of course I still have Planetez manga to finish up, and I'll probably, I'll probably hold myself to finishing that and giving an opinion next week, maybe like when we cover this. But how about you? What are you reading? Right. Okay. Very cool. So I'm writing them down so I can I can cheat. That's cool. Hmm. Huh. Very cool. Very, but it's a good read to check out. It's cool. Cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's it. So far, the Dune, that Volume One, it's interesting. Like I said, I'm still getting used to it, and I don't quite have any thoughts or feelings on it, but it's definitely. I think the artwork is good for the most part, and it'll be interesting to see what we come up with next week. Cool, cool. All right, well that does it for this episode, all about Chris Nolan and how he has used comic book themes and characters successfully, I'd say, as well as done his own thing. Like I said, always in support of the content creator on the show for sure. And with that, we'll catch you next week.